In Venezuela, the network of jurists for the release of President Nicolás Maduro and his wife Celia Flores met in Caracas to discuss the demand for the release of the leaders who were kidnapped by the United States. And the United States has issued an alert for flights across the American continent due to the risk of military activities and interference with navigation systems. And Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Kameni condemned the criminal actions of U.S. President Donald Trump against his country. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, the lawyer community joined the wave of rejection and condemnation of the United States' illegal military aggression against the South American nation, also demanding the immediate release of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady and Deputy Celia Flores. From Caracas, our colleague Michelle Ramirez with the details.
En la ciudad de Caracas, más de 2,000 abogados,
In the city of Caracas, more than 2,000 lawyers, judges, academics, and justice system workers from Venezuela gathered to join voices condemning the United States' illegal military aggression against Venezuela on January 3rd.
We strongly reject and condemn the military aggression carried out in the early morning of January 3, 2026, by the armed forces of the United States against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, which also included an incursion into national territory that led to bombings in several cities, including the city of Caracas.
Desde el marco jurídico
From a legal perspective, they defend international law and demand the immediate release of President Nicolás Maduro and the First Lady and Congresswoman Celia Flores, who were kidnapped by U.S. military force.
So I believe we are facing a duality. We are on the brink of disaster, and it is the vanguard of the Venezuelan people and the state that must drive the rebirth of international law with the immediate release of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores. We will enforce the law, then the truth. And then we will have the strength necessary to drive the reconstruction of public international law.
alertaron que la agresión perpetrada por
They
Washington
warned that the aggression perpetrated by Washington not only violates Venezuela's sovereignty, but also sets a dangerous precedent for international security by violating essential principles such as legality, justice, and respect among nations.
We would be entering an era where the law of the jungle prevails, the law of the strongest. If I can remove the president of a country using technological resources and threats, and I can do so against the will of their people, we would be entering into a lawsuit with unthinkable consequences for international security.
A su vez, resaltaron el heroísmo
In
histórico
addition, they highlight the historical heroism of President Nicolás Maduro as a symbol of resistance on a global level.
For an illegal kidnapping that has made him a symbol of resistance against fascism and imperialism, Nicolás Maduro Moros is today, together with Celia Flores, the global symbol of resistance, loyalty, and courage. They had to come up with a disproportionate force because he did not sell out, he did not give in, and when people talk about loyalty in the world, they will talk about Nicolás Maduro as a strong man, loyal to the people of Venezuela and to the legacy of Commander Chávez.
Este sector propuso la creación de
This
comisiones
sector proposed the creation of a special legal commission to bring the message of Venezuelan people to international forums, demanding the release of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores, as well as the cessation of aggression and threats from Washington.
en la Cámara de Jesús Romero, Michelle Ramírez desde Caracas, Venezuela, para teleSUR.
And in Spain, activists and citizens gathered at a cultural center in Barcelona to expose the disinformation campaign promoted by the United States against the Venezuelan people. The event took place as part of the Days for the Defense of Venezuela against U.S. imperialist aggression. During the activity, a thorough historical review of the Bolivarian Revolution was conducted, examining how the social transformation process initiated by Hugo Chavez has been the target of systematic attacks due to its example of sovereignty and anti-imperialist resistance. These educational sessions aim to strengthen international solidarity with Venezuela, spreading the truth about the achievements of the Bolivarian project and denouncing the warmongering policies employed by the United States. And Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, ratified the Economic Recovery, Prosperity and Growth Program presented by President Nicolás Maduro in 2018, highlighting the significant achievements of this model. During the National Council for Productive Economy, the acting president announced the signing of a contract for the commercialization of liquefied petroleum gas, marking the formal start of the country's export of this energy resource. In turn, Rodriguez emphasized that oil revenues will be used for social and economic development and called for diversification of the economy. This event brought together the business sector, public and private banking, and the national government with the aim of promoting the 14 drivers of the Bolivarian economic agenda. And 2025 represented another year of positive and promising economic and social results for the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. These achievements deserve special recognition given the increasingly difficult conditions the South American nation has faced due to the U.S. blockade and aggressions.
According to results published by the Central Bank of Venezuela, the nation led Latin America and the Caribbean in economic growth for the last 19 consecutive quarters. On the other hand, the production of oil enjoyed a 12.9% increase in 12 months, reducing to zero the oil imports in 2025. In the social sector, the Bolivarian nation reportedly allocated $277.6 million to 35,037 community projects and has devoted 77.8% of its 2026 national budget to social investment. On the other hand, Venezuelan authorities seized 65,800 kilograms of drugs and 113,178 kilograms of controlled chemicals in 2025, and so far in 2026, they have already confiscated 7,148 kilograms of drugs. In relation to employment, there is a reported 58.1% growth in the number of formal jobs. The recovery of the electricity sector in 2025 grew 148% compared to 2024, and the access to drinking water increased by 110% in the same period.
Now, have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United States has issued an alert for flights across the American continent due to the risk of military activities and interference with navigation systems. According to the advisory, Washington has unilaterally initiated military operations in the area, about which no further information has been released. The aviation notification, known as NOTAM, states that there are potential risks to aircraft at all latitudes, including overflights and during arrival and departure phases of flights. This alert, which is reportedly set to extend for 60 days, covers airspace over Mexico, Panama, Colombia, Ecuador, and oceanic areas. In this regard, some reactions of rejections have occurred in Mexico and Colombia, recalling that the criminal aggression against Venezuela had similar precedents. And U.S. President Donald Trump has escalated tensions with European allies by threatening to impose tariffs on countries that refuse to support his plan to annex Greenland. The warning follows a tense week in the Arctic during which NATO allies deployed troops to the largely autonomous territory, part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Since returning to office in January 2025, Trump has repeatedly argued that the United States badly needs Greenland for strategic reasons, citing its location and vast mineral resources. Trump has now suggested that countries opposing the plan could face economic punishment and has not ruled out the use of force. The proposal has been met with strong resistance across Europe, particularly from Denmark, which holds sovereignty over the territory and has firmly stated that Greenland is not for sale.
And I may do that for Greenland, too. I may put a tariff on countries if they don't go along with Greenland, because we need Greenland for national security. So I may do that. I'll give you a little.
And in Denmark, citizens mobilized to express their solidarity with the region of Greenland in the face of threats by the United States to take over the island. On Saturday, thousands of citizens marched through the city of Copenhagen to the U.S. Embassy to condemn President Donald Trump's planned invasion of Greenland. The protesters marched with flags and chanted slogans to show their unity and demand respect for democracy and the fundamental rights of the Greenlandic people. They also denounced any foreign military action that violates the international law of the Arctic island. In support of Cuba amid imperialist threats from the United States, Nicaragua's co-president Daniel Ortega denounced the blockade policy that the U.S. government has maintained against the island for more than 6 decades.
Then threatening Cuba, Cuba that has had worldwide support every time the United Nations has held votes.
Ha tenido un respaldo mundial
Year after year, who voted to maintain the blockade against Cuba, and who voted to lift the blockade against Cuba.
Año con año. ¿Quiénes votaban a favor que se mantuviera el bloqueo a Cuba?
A blockade that has been maintained by the United States of America, not by the American people.
Los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica. No el pueblo norteamericano, sino los gobernantes norteamericanos.
But by the American government. In every vote, all countries voted to lift the blockade.
Todos los países votaron.
There are the United Nations votes, year after year, who voted against lifting the blockade.
Año con año. ¿Quiénes votaban en contra de que se levantara el bloqueo?
The delegate from the United States, the delegate from Israel, to countries, 3 countries at most voting in favor of the blockade.
And in Honduras, citizens took to the streets of Tegucigalpa to demand that the more than 400 ballots that give victory to Mayor Judge Jorge Aldana be counted. The protesters carrying flags and banners denounced irregularities and lack of transparency in the vote counting process. The disputed ballots, mostly from polling stations in key areas of the city, contain enough votes to overturn the preliminary results published so far by the National Electoral Council, which show a narrow lead for their main opponent. Furthermore, the demonstrators announced that they will maintain their mobilization indefinitely until their demands are addressed, and they have even called for a vigil in front of the Electoral Justice Tribunal in the coming days.
This is the action of a people outraged that their will has not been respected, the truth of having gone to vote on November 30th. So today we are not demanding anything wrong, we are not asking for any personal whim of ours, nor of Mayor Jorge Aldana. We are demanding what should be done correctly, which is to count the ballots, and respect the results of the ballots. The main objective is to reactivate the National Front of Popular Resistance. It is precisely this injustice that just happened in our country. How is it possible that not all the votes were counted? So we demand in a dignified way that all votes be counted, because we know there was fraud against Jorge Aldana.
Now for our second break coming up, before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top story, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, don't go away. Welcome back. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Kameni condemned the criminal actions of U.S. President Donald Trump against his country. Ayatollah Ali Kameni blamed the U.S. president for the dozens of deaths and damage caused during the protests in the Persian nation. The supreme leader asserted that Washington's goal is to destroy Iran. He also urged state security forces to stand firm and defend the Iranian people. And on Friday, intelligence organization of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps dismantled a Mossad terrorist cell that had infiltrated peaceful demonstrations, generating a strong wave of violence. The leader of the terrorists, Nastanin Barandaran, also known as Raha Parham, was arrested on charges of terrorist acts. Important information linking him to Bijan Kian, the right-hand man of the son of the deposed Reza Pahlavi, was also seized, confirming the connection of the Israeli and U.S. governments to the acts of violence that shook the country. In this context, Persian security forces also confirmed the confiscation of 60,000 weapons in Bushehr. On the other hand, the Iranian intelligence organization confirmed that Bijan Kian is the head of an anti-Iranian think tank and the promoter of a roadmap to undermine the integrity of the Persian nation, as well as one of the ideologues behind the terrorist acts. And in Palestine, citizens denounced the Israeli authorities and demanded compliance with the peace agreements in the Gaza Strip. In the run-up to the second phase of negotiations between Israel and Hamas, Gazans are denouncing the Zionist army's failure to comply with the initial agreements, including the withdrawal of troops. In this regard, they urge the United States, as a country promoting the peace plan, to demand that Tel Aviv withdraw its military from the borders and comply with negotiations. To date, Israeli forces remain deployed in half of the Gaza Strip, while Palestinians are crammed into small areas under extreme conditions. And for its part, the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas condemned the increase in Israeli violations amid the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Hamas warns that the attacks confirm Israel's continued sabotage of its commitments and disruption of efforts to achieve a ceasefire in the region. The Palestinian movement detailed that Tel Aviv committed more than 244 violations, over 400 shootings and 581 attacks since the ceasefire came into effect in October 2024. And various officials from the People's Republic of China held talks with their Canadian counterparts on Saturday to discuss mutual agenda items and sustainable development between the two nations. According to the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, both countries reached a consensus on deepening economic and trade cooperation and signed the China-Canada Economic and Trade Cooperation Roadmap, an agreement that aims to override the increase in tariffs imposed by the United States on both countries. The signing is a significant achievement as it represents the first high-level cooperation document in the history of bilateral economic and trade relations. According to the roadmap document, both parties will improve economic and trade communication mechanisms and promote cooperation in areas such as energy, agriculture, consumer goods, advanced manufacturing, and clean energy. Dozens of people soaked themselves in icy cold water on Saturday in a pool at Tokyo Shrine, adhering to the Japanese tradition of purifying the soul and praying for good health in the new year. The misogi ritual is an ancient Japanese tradition that frees the body of negative energies through ice-cold water bath, which, according to tradition, purify a person's chi. The faithful can also ask for other types of blessings and wishes such as road safety, success in business, exams, fertility, and safe childbirth. Shinto pacts are an important part of Japanese culture, and the misogi ritual is the start of the year that reinforces the willingness to receive the blessings of other rituals and promises. And hundreds of Spanish citizens gathered in the Avilian town of San Bartolomé de Pinares on Friday to celebrate the Festival de las Luminarias. According to some records, the tradition began in the 18th century and was intended to purify the livestock and free from evil spirits before the start of the farming season. The festivities begin every third Friday in January when huge stacks of tree branches are placed on both sides of the street while locals gather to share wine, beer, and sweets. Hours later, the stacks are lit and become menacing bonfires that the animals, guided by their riders, must jump or roll under. Although it has been criticized by various environmental and animal welfare groups, Festival de las Luminarias has never had any animals injured or harmed as a result of their participation. And in Malawi, projects focus on preserving rock art expressions that are part of the world culture's heritage.
Awareness campaigns are being rolled out across communities in Malawi to preserve rock art works that are part of the country's legacy and humanity's shared memory.
The rock art panels were being defaced with graffiti by local residents, especially those herding goats and cattle. We carried out awareness campaigns with community leaders, who asked us to hire rock art guards. These guards came from the local communities. Since then, graffiti is no longer a problem.
As part of these efforts to conserve these historical and artistic treasures, tourism has been promoted by both the state and non-governmental organizations.
The project focused mainly on promoting rock paintings. We did this through a range of activities. One of them took place in 2024, when we trained tourist guides and local staff from the Department of Museums and Monuments. The training focused on how to interact with tourists and how to use social media to publish their content online. If we implement all conservation measures, there will be a major change in terms of development. Small jobs will even be created for local people. Development will continue, as visitors will bring in money, and that benefits everyone, including Malawi as a whole.
The pieces reflect the artistic traditions of the Badwab hunter-gatherers and the Chiwe farmers, showcasing the nation's richness as the place with the highest concentration of rock art in Central Africa.
I think the cave is truly amazing and beautiful, and especially when you consider that the paintings are 10,000 years old. It's really incredible. Even the red color still looks so vivid. I believe the cave and its paintings should continue to be protected and remain a UNESCO World Heritage Site, even though there are very few tourists here.
Preservation is vital for safeguarding the nation's and the world's cultural heritage, a status granted by UNESCO in 2006, and it also serves as a key pillar for the local economy.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.